So, another episode of Write Once, Read Many. This time we've got Vic here.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Just need to take a second to get the link out there.
I
Sorry.
happily took some creative liberties with the art because I didn't want to put Labyrinth in a full coverage mask. So we'll just say that in mask. Burnsker obviously already knows what she looks like because they were like in the asylum together or whatever.
She doesn't need to hide her face at this point.
Yeah. But also like I feel fine like taking more liberties with the interlude art rather than the like chapter by chapter art, so
Right.
it makes it a little more fun.
Agreed. And I would rather have something that's not the exact scene, but like more.
It's reminiscent.
Yeah. Bale's here, saying hi all, and Greg is here as well. So yeah, as you can see, we've got our Burn Scar and Labyrinth art. You know, arting.
At the pinnacle moment of Labyrinth giving her an awkward behind hug.
Exactly. It's the hugging Brad moment for all the Lisa the Painful fans. So, the audience participation reminder. The question was, what's the worst mental downside we see from a power from your perspective? Vale says, I joined late in that discussion. If you're talking about the art either attempting to be exact for a scene or representation, I like the exact art for Worm most. Huh. Well, we were kind of had the opposite opinion of showing her face when we don't know if her face was.
Yeah, she doesn't mention if she's wearing a mask. She doesn't mention if Burn Scar's wearing a mask, but she can see her skin and her eye. Well, actually, it seems like she can see her whole face.
I think that only Shatterbird wears a mask on the Slaughterhouse 9. I think the other members all don't.
Crawler wears a mask, but it's just like a little tiny thing taped to his forehead.
Yeah, definitely.
Vil says, I think for me it's because I don't visualize when I read, so seeing something that aligns with the story is more special to me. That's fair. You don't visualize when you read? Is that with all reading or just Worm, or I was curious.
I think that sometimes when I think of a scene, it's like, how to say, it's not an exact, like, I'm not seeing the scene per se, but I have like a mental, like a blob in my mind that can be like formed into a person, but it's like that character. And they have a lot of like feelings associated, and I could like describe what they look like, but I don't like see them per se.
I feel like usually it's like somewhat amorphous, and then if you like really thought about it, you could like flesh out all the different aspects of like what you're seeing or whatever in your mind.
Yeah.
No internal visuals. Oh, you're one of those people, Vale.
Greg says, I do like when Victoria flexes the creativity a bit. Giving the right feeling is more important than being strictly literal. Yeah, that's definitely in alignment with our thoughts as well. But 2 + 4 × 5 is, as always, driving to work. So hello. But yeah,
2 + 4 × 5 might want to quit their job, to be honest. It seems like they're always driving to work.
That's the only time we ever see this person is driving to work. But yeah, that's gotta be crazy, dealing with no internal visuals. And then So for the themes, we've got hypocrisy. I mean, there.
Well, I wasn't sure if we should like break them up by chapter, but like that was the only one that I could think that was in both of them.
We could definitely break them up by chapter. I think that each of these 8 things are supposed to be like a different slice of horror
Hmm.
chapter, and given
Yeah.
that, like, horror is kind of a theme for all of them, but it doesn't feel super strong in the L chapter for some reason. Um,
Yeah, like she's stressed. I mean, we'll talk about it. I'm gonna be the hater, a
mhm.
hater for the L chapter if you wanna try to lift it up a little bit.
Yeah, that's okay. I will lift it up.
Okay.
But I realized there's actually like some. I don't know which words to use for the themes, but there's like parallels between these chapters where like Mannequin and Burn Scar serve the same role in the chapter, and even though there's a prior relationship and no prior relationship, they're still like there for a specific purpose and person, and
Hmm.
they go there and have like um, a little conversation with the person, and they take down. They have like a witness who can't help, which is like
Hmm.
L, and that's also what like Dragon is like. And then Defiant is kind of like the entire Fault Lines crew aside from Labyrinth, who are like
Hmm.
being torn to shreds slowly. So
Yeah.
it just felt like really similar when I listened to them back to back.
Yeah, for sure. Phil says they think Labyrinth chapter is their least favorite. I think I agree. Um,
I almost made the
yeah,
question about what is the least favorite like interlude in the book, but then I thought that was too
yeah,
mean.
yeah. And it's too early.
We
We
can do
gotta
stuff
do
like that later. Yeah,
interlude March Madness.
for sure.
Um, I feel like between Worm and Ward, you'll have to take a lot of because there's just gonna be
I just
now
think it
that we've
has to be
seen
different
like
brackets, you know.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
But
We can do lots of brackets. Characters versus characters and then the interludes versus interludes.
oh, but we didn't
I
actually
also
say what the hypocrisy was.
oh, well, Alice being a big hypocrite in this chapter. She's all like, ugh, Burn Scar just lets her power control her and cause all these problems in her life. Good thing I have a family that takes care of me. It's like, okay, Elle, good, good for you. And I
Yeah,
don't know if that's like it's just as sad that that's like the most characterization we're getting from her is something that I'm really not a fan of because like I don't dislike Elle and I don't dislike Labyrinth, but like the only things that we learn from her this chapter is like more about how much she loves her crew and then like the fact that she's like really judgy
she's kind of
to
a goody
Burn
two
Scar.
shoes as well,
She's kind of a goody two shoes.
which
I
you
was
know
like,
we both kind of hate.
she's such a lawful good for somebody who's literally a criminal mercenary. It's like when you're a mercenary, you're not even following any of your own morals. Like
Yeah,
if they were just a villain crew and they were, doing whatever they wanted, that'd be even a little bit different. But
but
oh my gosh.
Fault Line's really like specific about the mercenary thing, and I'm sure it's so that it's like not getting taken advantage of and always like doing jobs for money. But on the other
Mm.
hand, it just comes across as like we don't have our own specific goal.
Yeah. Well, it seems like their goal is just to take care of each other, and like the way that they do that is by doing crime for money. Like it just seems
Hmm.
like they don't care at all about being villains or about even being capes, kind of for that matter, which like makes sense because they have, a couple tricky personalities and situations on their team, but I don't know. There's like a lot to say. There's a lot to say about this chapter, and I don't want to be too mean, but I am going to hate on the entire thing.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good. We'll
Oh,
quickly
and then
address
the
Vale's.
hypocrisy for
Oh
for
yeah.
um for Colin is like He's like, no, I'm different from you. I'm doing all this stuff and I'm trying to be good. And then I don't know. We'll definitely get into it.
For sure, for sure. Vale said, I also dislike Hook Wolf about the same. Oh,
Oh
interlude
yeah,
March
true.
Madness would be amazing. Yeah, for me, like, Hook Wolf takes the cake of, like, kind of chapters that I'm not into.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll get to that next week. This chapter, 10 or 11.c, the Labyrinth chapter, has a weird feeling opening. We don't get to know whose perspective it is for about 2 pages of text, which translates to like 4 minutes of audiobook. But we will soon learn that it's Labyrinth. We learned from Arc 5 that there's some sort of trade off for her between lucidity and the strength of her power, and today she's very lucid. She's been trying to take care of herself, even going so far as to take a walk. But this actually means that she's left her shaker effect, which reset it to a small circle around herself, and so she's only got a very small radius of effect right now. But we'll catch up with her in a moment. So it opens with Fault Line's crew being under attack by Burn Scar. And like just this really unclear perspective. Uh Again, it's weird to talk about because the whole opening throws you off, and
Hmm.
it really feels like it's all for the gimmick of not knowing whose perspective we're seeing yet.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily like we're watching the fight from this perspective that is like it is technically Labyrinth, but we're not gaining anything from her insight. It just seems like I know that this was a day that like her power is less active, but I would have liked to see like I don't know, her pulling some more of it into her just like moment by moment perspective because that is how most other capes think.
Yeah. And like I mean, we might as well have learned in this chapter that her name was Normie McNormerson.
Yeah.
She's just such a like
She's just like a normal like girl. She's like I don't know how old she's supposed to be, but I like assume she's kind of like 19 to like early 20-ish.
yeah. Um anyway though. So the whole crew aside from Labyrinth is being attacked in the street outside of Palanquin by Burnscar. Spitfire's running away at Faultline's orders because Spitfire's power is like strictly a detriment to an opponent like Burnscar. Um who has been building like an advantageous battlefield for herself. She both throws fireballs around to start new fires, and then she influences all the existing stuff to spread, and then reveals the ability to sort of walk, teleport through one patch of flame to any other. And so she can throw out portals for herself and then teleport from anywhere because she can just generate the flame on her skin and just zoop. So, she's got a pretty versatile power.
Hmm. It's not
Um,
as murderous as Spitfire's is, but she herself makes it more murderous.
yeah, I think Spitfire's got like a weird thing where she's not immune even to her own flames. So it's
Oh.
just like a really dicey power. I wouldn't want to have Spitfire's power, but
Mm-hmm.
I might want to have like burn scars.
Hmm.
Um, So Gregor is trying to stop stuff with his power, which it seems like he'd be really good in a situation like this, but Burnscar can put out flames like really, really fast, and so he's having to deal with stuff all over the place, and Neuter isn't that effective. He's like trying to throw stuff at her with his tail and whatever. He's just kind of like whatever. And the first unattributed thought from Labyrinth comes through in italicized text. She's lamenting that the street is too high up, that they're up on this hill, and that the streets are dry, unlike the rest of the flooded city. Um,
Typical normie thought.
um, So Shamrock and Gregor are kind of going all out, and they're just shooting right at Burnscar, but it not really doing anything because she just keeps teleporting. She gets behind three of them and blasts the group. Gregor puts them out with some slime, but they're like barely keeping pace in this fight and not really building to anything on their side. So there doesn't seem to be a plan or anything but moment to moment reaction,
Hmm.
which it's bad. If you find yourself in a parahumans fight like that, you're gonna lose.
Yeah, I think that like the fact that they're mercenaries, they probably are a lot of a better a group that works better with some prep time because they typically always know what they're getting themselves into, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, literally the last time we saw them was like one day of story time ago, like
Hmm.
completely demolishing everyone.
Hmm.
But this is what happens when they get caught out of position.
Hmm.
Um, so where was I? Boop boop boop. So things are high stakes for Elle right now. She's freaking out. They're more than just friends. They're her nakama, XD. Um, so she goes into her mind and the landscapes that are available through her power. She starts to think of possibilities to help her friends. Right now, her range is so small that if she runs downstairs, she'll reset her power to none at all, so she can't actually join them on the battlefield without, like, losing her powers. So she skips the High Temple and the Bad Place. Good Place stole the concept from Labyrinth in Worm, confirmed.
Hmm.
She also decides against the Lonely Hallways, and by no means is she going to be using the Burning Towers right now. Um,
Bad call.
She settles on the barren ruins with a mix of danger and useful components. It's the best option she has right now, despite the weakness that her negativity and self loathing fill in the details, and things can spiral in a bad direction. She's like, fuck downsides,
Yeah.
which
Just need
is
to do something.
kind of like a parahumanist thing. You
Hmm.
gotta get into the mix.
Hmm.
What am I gonna not fight? After Elle finds a large statue that has water in it, she starts to slowly push it through into the normal world. Her power not being strong today makes it take a lot longer than would be optimal. She's also not able to shape things as they come into the world like she'd want to. So, to get the water out of the statue, she has to set up a mechanism with existing parts that she can pull through. And so, during this process, while she's thinking it through, the fight continues outside and things aren't looking good. Burnscar downs a bunch of them with like Gregor passed out in some flames and like Neuter gets hit in the stomach with a fireball and I think Fault Line's down too, And
Hmm.
so Elle eventually notices, or I mean, sorry, Burnscar eventually notices what Labyrinth is doing with the statue and partially destroys it with yet more flames. Um, she kind of Labyrinth kind of has to figure out something on the fly to have it still work, and she comes up with an idea that Shamrock can push the little pieces into place correctly through the crumbling mechanism. But to get this message out, she like takes her chair, busts open the window, and then like because she's super out of it, she just like puts her hand down on the glass of the windowsill and is like shouting and does not even like really acknowledge the probably extreme pain and then yells down at them and for some extra effect hits the building with her bloody fingers and stuff. Shamrock's confused, but she pulls through, and with her super small scale telekinesis and precognition that the whole team brands as luck powers, the mechanism is released and the waters flood over the streets and they put out all the fires at ground level. So,
Very
huzzah!
nice. Huzzah! Good job, Shamrock.
I I like the concept of this, but I feel like in practice for me the the complexity of this scene. I mean, I guess it does do a decent job at representing how annoying having Labyrinth's power is, also. But, like, the
Yeah.
complexity of this scene takes from the punch of it. Like, there's so many different little things going on, and then,
Yeah,
like.
and then the stuff with her,
Mhm.
I think that would have worked better if there was either more focus on the real world or there was more focus on her power world, her mini worlds. I think that would
Mhm.
have made it a lot, I don't know. And it would have been way more interesting if we got more info like about her headspace in which she's like in this bad place where her power is really strong and stuff.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So, even as the tide is turning, Burnscar chases Spitfire. Shamrock's the only other person left standing. She sort of like it seems like she's looking back at the others, deciding whether she should stay with their bods on the ground or help Spitfire. And she decides to give chase, and she leaps through a little waterfall that's left over, give a small amount of protection against the flames. So Labyrinth is kind of freaking out right now. She doesn't have her phone, and she starts thinking to herself that she needs a way to get their attention because she's starting to focus on the idea that Burnscar is after her specifically, which the team likely doesn't know. Um, and in fact, she is correct, as Burnscar has doubled back very easily, appearing in flames that were still on the side of the Palanquin building. And she walks right in the front door and upstairs to the bedroom. It was just Elle and Burnscar. Um, then we get treated to a delightful conversation between two old friends who just
Oh
want to
my
catch up.
God. I I think this is the worst part of the whole chapter. I know that you're supposed to be like, haha, cringe or whatever, like they're both like really bad socially or whatever, but I can't handle it. I really I do like I am getting like a hankering to rewrite this chapter.
Yeah,
Yeah. We've just had so many more enjoyable awkward moments as Taylor that I know that it doesn't have to be this painful.
yeah. I kind of I thought about whether I should make a mini conversation like we've done in the past, but I was like,
No,
that would be
because
so hard for this because it's
well,
just
the
like,
thing is, your mini mocking conversations, like that's what this one actually just naturally sounds like. Like it does come off as like it's like moving so fast. Like she does the like the weather joke and then immediately she's like, I don't want to talk about the weather. And I'm like, dude, what? They're both struggling, but I just don't think that we need to be subjected to it.
yeah, I don't know. It's like good and bad because like it is cringe, but like I actually think, and this is another one where like probably other people who aren't me have a very different opinion of this, but I find Burnscar Mimi to be one of the more like overall tragic and pathetic characters.
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
I feel
I
like
mean, that
people
comes
are
off
just.
in this chapter.
I mean, it does, but I don't feel like other like I don't know. There's like the whole thing. I think we're meant to think about Shadow Stalker in that same way, and yet in both characters' cases, I think the bad of their deeds overshadows too much the like place they're coming from, and it's like different for every character. Like
Hmm.
for instance, the Siberian do not feel as bad for the Siberian per se as for like um Burnscar, even though the Siberian could, theoretically be thought to have a tragic backstory. But
Yeah, but I mean, as we get into it, there's like characters that we don't need to feel bad for at
yeah,
all. That it's like a whole power dynamic thing. I'm thinking specifically about like
Hook
in the
Wolf.
S9, like Hook
Mm,
Wolf, he whatever. Like Jack could leave the S9 whenever he wants, pretty much. Um, Crawler could leave whenever he wants. Siberian could leave whenever she wants. So like I have like pretty much zero empathy for those characters, but like Mimi is she like explains the like dire situation that she's in,
And she's also
and
right. She's like literally right. She would be
yeah,
killed by the
it's
heroes
not
or
like
killed by the
she's
Slaughterhouse Nine.
yeah, it's not like she's pulling these, because you know, we all know people where we'll try to like problem solve with them and there'll always be like pushback, like, well, but then this would happen and then this would happen and this would happen, and like I get in that headspace. But she's like literally right, even without us having like the further context that we'll get about the Slaughterhouse Nine. At this point, I still think it's very, very clear that she cannot leave and she will never be able to leave. And and Labyrinth is just like, well, that's too bad, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it makes me so it almost reminds me of that scene in White Lotus, you know, where the scary blue-eyed lady is like been desperately like reaching out for help from like anyone who will give her 2 cents, and then like she finally thinks she found somebody who will help her, and she's like, can you stop complaining to me about your problems? I literally don't care and I can't help you. And like that's the breaking point. And I feel like it's the same thing for Burnscar. Burnscar thinks she like finally found somebody that will listen to her and that she can rely on in any way. And Elle just like immediately shuts her down. It
Yeah.
does not offer her absolutely anything.
I'm not here for your shit right now.
Oh my gosh. I just like I feel way worse for her than I do for Shadow Stalker, because it's the same thing. Like Shadow Stalker had power in her life. Um in
Yeah,
Mimi's
yeah. Like
life
I
it
don't
seems
feel
like
like terribly. Like, I don't feel as bloodthirsty for Shadow Stalker as the
yeah,
like
as most people.
use the electrical cord to hang. Like, I don't know about that.
um yeah, I feel pretty much zero blood for thirst for Brunnscar.
Yeah, and I mean she does prove to be a real asshole a little later, but that's a
I'm
little
sure
later.
she's gonna yeah, that's a little later. That's not right now. She's probably being an asshole because of Elle's rejection, to be honest. This is actually all Labyrinth's fault.
This is actually like a gigantic rejection in her life. Like
Yeah.
probably the
No, it's
this is like the
literally the
last
worst
thing
thing
she
that's
wanted
ever
to. Yeah, this is possibly the worst thing that's ever happened to her.
Oh
So,
my God.
from her own
Okay,
perspective.
I'm sorry for going on a rant. We can keep
Oh
going.
no, no. We'll get back into things, but that was good. Um, but Mimi and Elle say hi to each other. Mimi apologizes for trying to burn up Elle's friends and all that outside just now. You know how it goes. Well,
hmm
she's doing her best, or well, she's. So I said, well, she's doing the most of the talking to Elle. Elle is deciding not to speak her thoughts aloud to keep things more or less calmed down. But the bad thoughts are creeping in, and you know what they say about the barren ruins. It's all fun statues and dead trees until the bad thoughts creep in.
Yeah, that's what they always say.
Yeah, classic. Um, so Mimi makes some excuses for things along with the apology. She says she wants to talk like old times, and it keeps sort of rambling about how good friends they were and some of the only moments she treasures. She's clearly had a very sad life, even before powers were involved. And then explains that she's there because the Slaughterhouse Nine are in town. And she got really excited when she realized that she'd be in the same place as Elle. Then she gets pretty flustered when she says that, actually. And she tries to start over. She has one of those flashbacks that with a freeze frame. She says, "You're probably wondering how I got here." And then starts telling the audience about how she escaped at the same time as Elle. she was alone. She didn't have like a support system. And this is the part where Elle's just like, I don't care. Um,
Oh my god.
and
It's just the more I'm thinking about it, the more and more upset I'm getting.
it's so funny because this happened for so many chapters. Like on the Page chapter, I used to be like, "Oh yeah, Page rules," but like we did our
Mhm.
thing for it, and I'm just like, "God damn!" Like Page,
God damn it.
she does suck.
Yeah.
Um. Anyway, where was I? I was bu- 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 so she was alone and trying not to use her powers to be like good, but she gets preyed upon, and then she unpreys upon herself by using her power. But this sends her into a downward spiral. Um, Greg says nothing wrong with a problematic favor 10. Exactly. Um, so we get the idea that Mimi was on the run after the whole murdering that guy who was trying to make her become a prostitute. Um, and then the Slaughterhouse Nine seemingly heard about some sort of burn scar based rampage and sought her out.
Mm.
And we later learned that Shatterbird actually intentionally takes pride in recruiting new members to the team and was the one here who is stated to have pulled her in. Um, so once she was there with them, there was a kill order on her, so she kept having to dig the hole deeper and deeper to stay with the Slaughterhouse Nine. And then we also sort of get this info that when she's around fire, her conscience kind of goes out the window, and then she gets more and more manic, like she was outside in the street. So she would use fire to emotionally shield herself from the things that she had already done. And that's part of what Ella's thinking is like, oh, you're just using it. You're a fool. Um,
Mhm. Oh, L.
I don't know why, but I just now imagined she would Greta Thunberg at her. How dare you?
Mhm. How
Um,
dare you?
Mimi, Mimi says she can't stop because the heroes and the Slaughterhouse Nine would both try to kill her, and the Slaughterhouse Nine have a new member that can track anyone. Oh! So, Mimi says that she thinks that even in the bird cage, they could get her. That the Siberian always catches her prey. Um, Things with the negative thoughts start getting out of hand. Elle tries to ask if she can touch Mimi to make her immune to the power. Mimi says that she's there to see all the new, beautiful things that Labyrinth can create that she's been told about. But then she notices all the horrible asylum stuff. And then she kind of
And
flips out.
this part isn't Elle's fault, but it's just like the icing on the cake that it's like, sorry, I actually hate you because you wanted me of the asylum.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
both take an L. Um,
Yeah.
Anyway, horrified, she realizes that they weren't actually friends. Um, she starts to break down a bit and apologizes and turns to go. And in the most heroic moment of all, Elle hugs Mimi, as pictured here, and gives her one last good memory before Mimi runs off into the night to be Burnscar once more.
Oh my god.
Elle needs to check on her friends. As for Burnscar, there would be no helping that girl.
Like, what are you talking about? You didn't offer her any help. It's just okay. Like, they were in the exact same situation. Elle came out on top and Burnscar left like under a bad situation. Was being like there's no opportunity for her to have done differently here. She was being, I mean, in my opinion, she like maybe didn't need to like use her power on this pimp guy, but like she's basically being like forced to be a prostitute and like needed to protect herself from that situation. Went off on him. I don't know if you mentioned it, but like she specifically says that like and this is like supported by whatever like doctors or treatment that they had at the asylum, that whenever she uses her power, like she loses her capacity for empathy.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's like a pyromaniac as well, which I don't think they really mentioned, but it's like clear from her like power and situation. Like
Hmm.
what in what at what point in time could she have done something differently? It's
Yeah.
just ridiculous. And then she like obviously came to Elle for help. Like she's going there under the pretense that she just wanted to see her or whatever. But like this is clearly a cry for help. Goes into her whole backstory. And in my opinion, I think she was like either hoping or I'm hoping that Elle would say, "Well, I have a great family here that have helped me overcome my problems. Would
Why
you
don't you
like,
go on the run with us?
why don't you join us?" Or she didn't even need to offer to have them join or whatever, like maybe offer protection. I don't know. It's just like like a protection as a temporary thing, and then also as like a trial run of having her in their group. Like this is a group of people who are all well, besides Faultline obviously, but like we're subjected to their powers in some way that has destroyed their bodies or minds. Like Mimi's in this crew with them, you know? It's not like she's some outsider with totally different problems.
Yeah, and she's got like physical mutilation in the same way that you could consider what happened to
Mhm.
Gregor or Neuter to be like physical mutilation.
Yeah, for sure. Like she fits in. She doesn't it doesn't even cross her mind. Like Elle, we hear like Elle's thoughts throughout this, like the like things that come to the forefront, and she never thinks like I would offer you a position if you hadn't done this and this, or if I thought like that you wouldn't like go down the wrong path, or if I thought that our crew could handle it, or any of that. Like she doesn't think about it.
Right. I mean, I think that she's not far enough along on her own thing.
That's
Um,
probably true.
she's just like still just barely getting by. So it's like a mix, but I
Ugh.
definitely know where you're coming from where it's like to me it is very just like it's not really pull the ladder up after myself because she's
Mhm.
still barely up the rope ladder, but it
Mhm.
is very much like I got
Like,
out
"Oh,
and I
sucks to
can't see
suck."
how there's a parallel between our situations.
Yeah, I can't see how she Labyrinth thinks that she would have never gotten into this situation because she's a good person and Burnscar's a bad person. But I I don't know. It seems like
Honestly, if
Burnscar
she got
didn't
scooped
do
up by
anything.
the Slaughterhouse Nine, I think they could have controlled Labyrinth like very easily.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think they would have just kept her in her negative state of mind, and then she'll have a similar effect as Mimi, wherein she's not lucid that she is hurting people or causing suffering that she's just not connected to. Like it's the same thing.
Yeah, Greg
Oh
says
my
Labyrinth
gosh.
pulled herself up by her bootstraps.
Mimi doesn't have bootstraps. Please. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. Labyrinth's just like a Republican. It's like, well, I worked really hard and I was able to improve myself. Um,
Yeah.
wow. I just are getting more and more mad at Labyrinth the longer I think about this because and this is her good day. It's not like she's having a bad day and then later down the path she's gonna be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that I did not help this situation at all. Like somebody was reaching out for me and I rejected them." No, this is her on her good day.
Relative good day. Maybe much further down the line, she'd be like, damn,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize I was being an asshole.
I didn't realize. And I've had those moments where people are definitely like calling out for help and I'm like, "Well, that's crazy." I'd like to think that I don't do that anymore, but it's only something you see in retrospect.
Right? Yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, moving on for a moment to our final chapter thoughts.
Mm.
I did think there was weak characterization through perspective compared to what we've seen so far, and this character
Mhm.
seemed like someone who would have a really like different perspective. So that's why it stands out. Like I'm not
Yeah.
upset that Danny seems like Taylor, but I'm kind of upset that Elle kind of seems like it just less tense Taylor.
Yeah, it's just the thing is that you can read all of her internal monologue and swap it with essentially any character and it would make sense. And that's what makes me like disappointed in it. Because even thinking about like other chapters where there wasn't strong characterization, like Theo's chapter, like Theo's thoughts are still uniquely his own. Um, you wouldn't be able to just swap them with anyone, you know what I mean?
Right, right.
But
Yeah.
Elle's just like, well, you should try not being evil. And then she's like, well, if you stopped killing people, this wouldn't be a problem. You're not trying hard enough.
You know what this makes me think of
uh,
when you say it like that just now, and it is the like Republican thing, but it's like you shouldn't have been born a peasant.
yeah, exactly. She's just being like, well, if only you worked at having a support system like I do. Maybe if you were nicer, you would have a found family.
You'd have a Nakama already.
Um, yeah. And so like I mean, I don't remember a lot about Burn Scar. I know that she's like annoying later and she probably does a lot of killing and stuff, but it's like, after this, like the worst rejection of I would just say it's not like the worst rejection of her life, but it's like she's at the very bottom, like
Well,
calling out for help, and
she's like
and
on the
Elle just like
brink,
kicks.
and she like
Yeah,
specifically thinks of this person as like one of the only good memories and people in her entire life. It seems
yeah.
like
Yeah, and
so.
Elle just buries her alive, and so, like, I kinda don't blame Burn Scar for just being like, "Well, I can't handle feeling anymore, I'm gonna just lean into things." I have this great built-in coping mechanism that coincidentally kills a lot of people.
Yeah. Um, and then the opening segment where we kind of touched on this already, where we don't have anything about how Elle feels or anything. Feels like it's
Mhm,
just holding off on a reveal because the rest of the chapter we're heavily in her thoughts and she's like tracking what she's doing with her own body. And even though she
mhm.
doesn't say like I feel pain, we still like follow all of the actions that she like puts her hand on the glass, she smacks her hand onto the windowsill. So
Yeah,
it's never
it's
like we don't
very
know what's happening with her.
Yeah, it's very tell, not show, and I'm not especially a fan of that, especially with this character, somebody who's supposed to be so in her own head space. It just doesn't exactly make sense. I guess you could say like she's dissociating in a different way, like she's disconnected from herself, so she's kind of viewing these things objectively, which I kind of saw reflected in the comments, like that was the view of it, but I don't know. It doesn't exactly make sense with like her form of dissociation, which is more retreating into her inner worlds rather than like retreating outside of herself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Crazy stuff.
Yeah. I think that maybe if they had kept up, like she initially starts thinking about Spitfire and like this fight in the terms of like what she knows about Spitfire and things that she said. I think that if they had kept that up throughout the fight, it actually would have worked a lot better. Like she's
Yeah.
thinking about Spitfire because she cares so much about her and her perspective is like through the lenses of her family here, and then it could have expanded and she could have thought about neuter
Well, yeah,
and
that's why I like called out the idea that in the first half we get nothing about herself, and in the second half we get like every little action she's taking because it
mhm,
felt like we were trying to set up a thing like from her perspective, she totally like misses the physical body she has because she's so out of it, and that
mhm,
she like is so focused on the others and on her inner world that she has a hard time focusing on the like close self and like
Hmm.
her own actions. But then because we track it so well later, then it doesn't feel like that was intentional.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would like we talked about, like I think it would be really fun to do rewrites of specific interludes and stuff, and I think this is the one that I'd like to tackle. So if we ever do that in the future, I think that'd be fun and have, you know, uh Vale and 2 plus 4 times 5 and Greg all join in would be awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I would have to like really think on it because there are a few like that interlude in arc 3.
Hmm.
If it was just like more from Gallant's perspective, like it would be really hard to write, I think, but like I think that'd be the chapter I would that like springs to mind for I'd want it replaced with a redo.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, I think we're ready for 11D though.
Okay, you can pull up the
Oh,
art.
Vale says I missed the idea. The idea was for
Vale volunteers.
ah, the idea was for the us to redo interludes with like a fanfic chapter of the same chapter. So Vic
Hmm.
would do, say, this labyrinth chapter, and I would do, for example, the arc 3 interlude, and make it like my change would be it would be from like Gallant's perspective specifically instead of
Hmm.
just like following him in a weird like close third person thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I think that'd be really fun. So Arms Man, he's in his prison mansion, and he hears a weird tapping sound. Some tapping, some scraping, some scuttling. It's kind of freaking him out. So he sends a message to Dragon to listen in, and she's able to triangulate the sound to a vent that's just above him. He dons his nanotech pocket knife, which is really funny. Like I know it's a really powerful, dangerous weapon, but it probably looks pretty pathetic to Mannequin.
I don't know why, but I always imagined it as like kind of intimidating, like because I imagined it's like one of those kind of chunky box cutters. I thought
Mhm.
to have the mechanism,
Yeah.
even with his power, it'd be like a chunky box cutter that like develops the blade out of the end.
Yeah. Um, and the vent above him explodes open, and out crawls a white figure, just one body part at a time. The joints are like connected by chains, and he kind of like slithers out and starts dropping to the floor. And we get to meet our next Slaughterhouse 9 member, which is Mannequin. Yeah, I drew the art flip to the other side because I knew it needed to be on his he holds the mirror to his right side, but I I don't know how to explain this, but like when you're an artist, you have kind of you either lean everything to the left or lean everything to the right, and I lean everything to the left. And so often if I need to lean something to the right or I need to mix it up, I'll just flip the canvas or go in with the plan of flipping the canvas at the end.
Mm. Mm.
Um, so I know and I do that. I know sometimes I send you files and you're like, why is this upside down? But it's because I do a lot of flipping around while I'm
Well,
working on
it's
it.
good to
So,
know that because yeah, there
yeah.
there are some of the there's one of the speed draws recently, like the labyrinth at the mall one was
Hmm.
flipped vertically for the speed draw, and I was just like, oh, okay, I guess.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't know what I was doing there.
Yeah.
I like Greg's as someone gently rapping at my chamber door. So the fight quickly kicks off. Mannequin has like blades like spinning out of his body, while he's kind of pulling his body together by the chains. Um, his whirling blades destroys Colin's computer and desk, seemingly accidentally. But also I think that Mannequin is just trying to like
Look at
be
this
really
shit.
intimidating. Yeah, exactly. Like he's like being a huge show off this entire time, which
He
is
thinks
super
he's
funny
all
because
yeah, he seems all like inhuman and stuff, but he
yeah,
kind of acts like a teenage boy.
he acts like a guy, he acts like somebody trying to intimidate, which is funny because it's like also something that that Colin has done in fights where he'll just like do something to show off
Yeah, and I mean
against
we've seen
Taylor.
Victoria do it too. Like she just
Hmm.
slams on that desk, breaks it across the room, like just cuz pretty much, but it is very
Yeah,
intimidating.
it's like just for the theater of it all. Um, so Dragon lets Colin know that help is on the way and starts briefing him on Mannequin more for comfort than information, also for exposition. But honestly, I don't think that it's like I feel like it fits it like slides in there really well. It doesn't seem out of character for Dragon or Colin for that to be like a reaction to the
Yeah.
situation.
Well,
Um,
I was listening to it earlier today, and I was thinking about how like this could be seen as clunky exposition, but from my perspective, when I'm listening to it and I'm not analyzing it, it
mhm.
feels very natural to me.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Um, So she starts briefing him on Mannequin, and basically is like, "Oh, he targets Tinker," which is probably isn't very comforting. I don't even think she says that. I think she just alludes to it. She's like, you know his MO. I don't need to say it." And he specifically targets people who are like trying to better the world in some sense,
yeah,
which.
to grab a quote out here, his prey of choice included rogues, those individuals seeking to make a profit from their abilities, especially those looking to better the world. Dot dot
Mhm.
dot and tinkers. Dot.
Whoa! So, Colin starts egging on Mannequin, and he's like, "I have nothing to live for." And then when Mannequin doesn't make a move, Dragon seems to realize something, and it like creates this air of disappointment just like emanating from her. Uh, and she lets Colin know that the Nine are actually in town to recruit their ninth member. So
And it lets us
the
know, too,
yeah, as well, all of us.
even though we already knew from Jack.
Yeah. But she's just trying to push him towards the conclusion, which is that Mannequin thinks that Colin should join the Slaughterhouse Nine.
Yeah.
Um, he gets very triggered at this, which is understandable, and just starts flipping out. Um, and he screams about how he would have like all the lives he would have saved if he had been successful in his plan. And Dragon is like behind him on a speaker, like, you need to calm the fuck down because you're gonna make him kill you. um so Mannequin starts rummaging through the keys of the keyboard that he slashed in half earlier, and he starts to spell something out. Uh, but Colin is really stupid, and he like doesn't understand what's happening. So Mannequin opts instead to hold a piece of glass up to his own face to act as a mirror and show his face next to his own, depicted here in this image. um, which I
Oh.
always like when I read these chapters originally, I was like, "Ugh, Mannequin's so pathetic, like doing all these things." But the mirror thing is actually kind of cool. Okay, it's just
Look,
like,
the mirror thing is cool, and also, like, honestly, pretty intimidating show of force. This guy, like,
mhm,
throughout all the interactions we'll see with him, like, he loses and misjudges sometimes, but so much of the time he's spending it, like, just tantalizing somebody else with the
yeah,
idea that they might be able to hit him, and they keep overcommitting and getting hurt, and, like, I don't know, he does it real well, even though he's a real asshole.
yeah, he's a real shithead. And it's kind of funny, but it is even funnier when he's trying to do something to intimidate or like toy with somebody, and then Colin is like, I don't understand what you're doing.
I'm too dumb for this to be intimidating to
It,
me.
like, does make the move come off as a lot more pathetic than, I'm sure was intended. It's like that. I mean, I do that move a lot where you just, like, act stupid, and then it makes whoever you're talking to look, like, even worse. I like to do that, at work a lot, so
I've seen you do it.
I know. It's a good move, and, I wish that Colin was doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
So, despite Dragon's protests that Colin needs to stay quiet, Colin starts flipping out again, and he's like, "I'm nothing like you." He basically calls Mannequin an idiot for having a family that could have been taken from him,
You
and that
moron.
he himself was smart enough to not make that mistake.
Dude,
And
he
then
starts out as such like a Sigma. He's like, gotta be on my Sigma grind set as a hero. That's all I gotta
yeah,
do. Can't have any
yeah,
attachments.
it's pretty bad. And then he calls him a failure for not finishing his projects just because his loser family got killed, and that his existence every day is an insult to their memories. So it's pretty savage. Um, I wouldn't recommend talking like that to anyone, especially if they're about to kill you. But this is
I think
clearly the
it's good. You know, I also thought about this while I was listening to the chapter this morning. Is
Mhm.
um that uh essentially Colin here comes up with the ultimate technique that Taylor uses in her final battle, which is the power of bullying.
Yeah, the
Um,
power of bullying is, I guess that is a good theme for this chapter for sure, because uh Mannequin's trying to do that like coy kind of bullying where he's like, ooh,
and then Colin's just like, "Your dead
and then
family. You're an insult to
yeah,
their dead memories."
he's like, you suck. You shouldn't have even gotten married or had kids because you knew they would have died, you idiot. It's a very different style. Both kind of have their place, you know.
Yeah.
Uh so these verbal insults though are clearly the last straw for Mannequin because he does proceed to slice Colin up real good. He just kind of like splashes into him several times into his torso and face and such. I pulled this quote here.
Oh
Colin
yes.
tried to laugh and found he couldn't. I thought that was a good Taylor moment. It's
Man,
not a good time to laugh.
it's funny too because like Colin and Taylor are like, mm, they're not the same guy, but they're a really similar guy.
They're not the same guy. It's like I feel like they're the same person, but they have different morals.
Yeah, but like
Kind of.
they're so like similar with their like inappropriate social reactions, and they're
Mhm.
like just the way he flips out in this fight, like Taylor would do the exact same thing.
That's true. I think that she would start yelling at him about how stupid he was for having a family that could get killed. Um, so
She'd be like, I felt
Colin,
bad about it, but like I still did it.
but I still did it. I knew it's what needed to happen. Colin manages to come within inches of knifing Mannequin, but Mannequin intercepts his hands and pulls them away with his chains, barely letting him kind of graze his face with the nano knife, but easily avoids it, as if he's just toying with him or something. And I did think it was funny because
This
it does
literally
remind
is
me a lot of
so
the
similar to that. Yeah.
yeah, it's just like the Leviathan fight where he's like getting really, really confident because he's so cocky that he can't like see past it when it's happening or whatever. And then as soon as they pull away, he's like, "Oh, I'm such an idiot. They were just toying with me."
Yeah, I
Um,
mean I totally hadn't thought of that till I was reading your thingy just now as we were going, and like
yeah,
you're so right. Like
yeah,
it's
and
just like that.
it does work really well with him. And I mean, they haven't really talked about how much like Tinkers seem to analyze each other's fighting, except for the fact that Colin does it or whatever. But I'm sure that Mannequin like literally like has analyzed that aspect of him that it's like really easy to enrage Colin by doing this technique of like getting his ego and his hopes up and then like ripping it away with him by basically laughing at him.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it does seem like there's some like non-tinkers who are really analytical about the way they fight, like Taylor
Mhm.
obviously, but like the way that Colin and then Mannequin seem to fight is they're like super like focused on the minutia of how things are like moving around and like
Mhm.
stuff like that in a way that not all the characters think like.
Yeah.
So
Uh, right before Colin blacks out, he hears Dragon calling for him. No, 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 no. Colin, stay awake. I need you. I like the audiobook read of this line because he does manage to say it without sounding romantic somehow. Like I wonder how many times it took for him to get that. Because she's like, "No, Colin, stay awake. I need you." He just says it like so quickly and like in a way that like couldn't even be misconstrued as romantic, but when you read it, it's like, "Oh, this is a little, it's something, right?"
yeah, yeah, no,
Um,
I think you're right. This one I kind of Mm. Before we're totally done, I am gonna touch on the audiobook of 11C, I think.
okay.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Colin actually doesn't die. So Dragon fixed him up with some artificial parts, and he seemingly only survived by sheer stubbornness. Dragon lets Colin know that these parts are just prototype stuff, so she'll have to keep working on him to make sure he doesn't die. And after he thanks her, she begins to chew him out. Um, that was the stupidest fucking thing I've ever seen. It's a direct quote.
Yeah.
um,
She's just calling him out on
yeah,
his shit.
yeah. Colin says that he was trying to tease him for an opening, which I also like. I think that technically might be true, but he doesn't think that to himself the whole time. He just thinks this guy's gonna kill me anyways. I might as well
Sometimes we
go out
just
with a
gotta tell
bang.
some stories about the reasons we did things.
Yeah, like I think that that's what he thinks in retrospect, but the entire time what he was actually thinking is I have no reason to live.
Yeah.
um, and that like he doesn't deserve to live. So I don't know how necessarily true that is. Um Dragon shows him that he was actually left a BRB message with the computer keys by Mannequin, which implies that Mannequin purposely left him just on the brink of death. And to evade this thought, he asks Dragon about her "I need you" comment.
This is my new threat capital B, capital R, capital 8. It means I'll be back.
I'll be back. I just think it's funny that like Colin's whole focus is allegedly efficiency, but he's like really bad at prioritizing what he should be talking about in any
Well,
given
he's
moment.
he's efficiently getting himself into a relationship where he can get free technology.
That's true.
It's very
Oh my
efficient.
gosh. He just he's I know he's like not dying anymore, but he is still kind of on the brink of death and actively being threatened by a murder machine. And he's like, anyways, what were you talking about that you need me for?
Need me to what,
um
baby?
Yeah, need me for what? So I pulled this quote here. The silence stretched on for so long that he knew he'd made some faux pas. He just wasn't sure what. Stupid. This was the kind of thing that had cost him his position. Started the dominoes falling in such a way that it led him to being a prisoner in that room, led him to being an easy target for Mannequin, to him being here in this bed, never knowing what to say or how to say it or who to say it to. So he just kind of starts spiraling immediately,
Hmm.
which
This is what happens every time he talks to a girl, though.
I know, and that's the thing is that like he s- says something flirty, and then when she's silent, he's like, I wonder what in the world I could have done incorrectly right here. What are you talking about? The funny thing is that he's actually right. It isn't the fact that he had called out Dragon for professing her love to him in his dying moments. Because after a long spell of silence, Dragon lets him know that there's something you should know about me. So we as the audience know, ooh, she's about to reveal that she's actually an AI, and uh the I need you comment was just that she needs his tinkering abilities. Nothing else.
Later, she'll need something else from him, but
Later she'll That's the thing, it's like funny to think of their relationship as just using each other. Like he's just using her for like the literal get out of jail free card and all of the like sweet tech and body parts and stuff, and she's using him to like not be chained down by her AI programming.
yeah.
um I pulled this amazing comment here from AVR on June 19th, 2012. Colin is an idiot, all right. Good girl. Dragon's not his dog. Well, he might just get away with it, given she's got other stuff on her mind. um, just another call out. We did get another good girl this chapter. I did not bring it up because I don't think it's Colin's fault. I think it's Wildbow's fault.
We talked about it, and we are hoping that there is a maximum of 2 remaining good girls in the story, but we just can't be sure. So
um,
we'll be on good girl watch.
Good girl watch. Sigma said they completely misinterpreted the message. Mannequin was clearly trying to berate Arms Master for being mean. Berate. That's funny because that's like another good interpretation of it. I saw in the comments somebody was like, "Oh, I thought he was saying B-rate like he's like a B-rate villain slash hero, you
Oh,
know. It's like an
that's
insult.
yeah. He's a B-lister. Oh, that's
Yeah,
pretty
he's a
good.
B-lister. Yeah, I think Mannequin is smart enough to have meant all of those things.
Yeah. So I think we never noticed before, but Vale had the comment. Taylor does this also. Theater's part of the fight to like
Hmm.
the ridiculous yelling and show of forcing that they all do.
Yeah.
Um.
Um,
Mhm.
who are the good girls that haven't been introduced yet, though? I think the only good girls in the book are Taylor and Dragon, but I think that like
I'm
multiple
leaving
people.
myself open to hearing Colin himself say another good girl, maybe to Dragon, maybe somehow to Taylor again. I'm
I
just
think he
bracing
does.
myself because I'm gonna be like, I'll be like, oh, I think we're past them, and then there'll be more.
Yeah, I think that I feel like I get the feeling that he probably says some to Taylor when spoilers, but he will be in a more fatherly position with her at some point.
Yeah.
You know Amy does off screen. No. Amy Amy would never. Amy's on Tumblr. She knows better than that.
Amy's like, it
Listen,
would be toxic if I was doing something like that, and I
yeah,
would never do
exactly.
something toxic.
Amy's like a toxic Tumblr person who's like too woke to say good girl, but isn't too woke to redacted. But you know, we'll see. We'll see what kind of decision she ends up making.
Yeah.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
for final chapter thoughts, I think that the Colin chapter is great. I think as far as the horror chapters, it is one of the better ones that plays out. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Um, wait, what's wrong with redacted?
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know. It's a real gray area. Or was there an implied phrase? Yeah. I redacted the phrase.
yeah, we decided not to say the words.
No, it's spoilers and mega spoilers, but we're gonna see it in the next couple chapters.
Um, Anyway, so yeah, I think that Colin chapter is great. I know that we see from him several times, and that's to your disgust. But
Yeah. Well, it's just like, okay, listen. I'm fine. I'm fine with Colin after his revival. Um Pretty much kind of starts this chapter.
mhm.
But but I just think it's really selfish that he has like 5 interludes
He has
and
a lot
everyone
of
else
interlude real
everyone
estate.
else only gets one interlude, and it's not fair. He gets I guess spoilies that he's gonna live till the end of the book, but he gets this interlude, and then he's gonna get another interlude in not that long.
He gets that partial
And
one too. He gets the
yeah,
full one again
he
in
gets
not
the
that
full
long.
one. I give the full one a pass because he has changed enough as a character and in his like personal identity that it's like okay, fine. And Wildbow will do that for a couple other characters. I can only think of one off the top of my head. I think he's gonna do it for Theo, um but then he gets a partial one later, and I got to the epilogue of the book, and he has a whole epilogue chapter, and that was the part where I was like, I'm done.
Yeah, he
Like,
probably doesn't deserve the epilogue chapter.
he doesn't
Um,
deserve. No, that should have been a dragon chapter.
yeah, and then because I mean she's changed more than he has by the end. I think. I mean,
Yeah, and at that specific chapter too, she's like in a specific different state of mind than like we've ever seen her before.
I think
So,
seeing that same scene from her perspective would probably
oh,
be more powerful, although
I think
weirder
so.
and more sudden.
Yeah, it would be really crazy to be like, wait, this isn't really the dragon that I remember, and then you're like pulled out of it at the same time as her. Um, yeah. Anyways, I do think this is a really good chapter. And I don't think really poorly of any of the characters coming out of it, so that's better than I can say for the L chapter.
Yeah. Um. So for arc stuff, moving on down to that, I was gonna say I think we continue to see different types of and levels of horror. 11C is like a feeling of being not quite close enough or powerful enough to see, like save her friends. And then
Mhm.
11D is a similar feeling for Dragon, but for Colin, it's being slowly killed by the monster you can't quite keep up with. So I
Mhm.
suppose it's a little like 11.C for the rest of Fault Line's crew, but with more
Mhm.
serial killer vibes than super fight vibes. Because, 11C very much is like a traditional super fight, or possibly even like an urban fantasy feeling thing, because it's like
Mhm.
a couple people with fire powers, a lizard man, like a slime guy, and a couple people who don't really do anything except like one of them has a gun. So it's very fantasy esque. Feels like a Mage the Awakening tabletop game happening. And then this is like the serial killer slowly gets into the room and then he pushes you down with his knife and then you get your better knife, but then he uses that shit on you.
Yeah. I didn't even mention that he steals his nano knife at the end of the chapter, just to be a jerk.
Yeah, it'll come up as a reasonably important plot point later, but we forgot to mention it.
Yeah. I didn't forget. I was just too focused on the it does happen in the midst of the I need you part, and I was like, this is much more important.
You know what I should have done though? I should have mixed in.
Mm.
I didn't have it ready, but I should have gotten the clip of Anakin yelling, "I need him!"
Oh my god, it's just like that.
Yeah. Um. Anyway, so moving
Throwing
on
in
to
the
the
characters.
characters. Yes.
I don't have anything nice to say about Labyrinth right now. It's just that's the thing is like I don't think that I don't know. I think that her characterization is I don't want to say like wild, but unintentionally like characterized her as like a super normie with like weird she has like very childlike morals where she's like, well, if you don't do bad stuff, then bad stuff won't happen to you, kind of, because
Hmm. Yeah.
that's like her reaction to Mimi is like, well, maybe you should have not killed that guy, and then all of this stuff wouldn't happen to you. But it's like I just totally don't. And then there's obviously like the hypocrisy of not understanding that Mimi is at the whim of her own power in the same way that Labyrinth is. Something interesting that we kind of learn about Labyrinth this chapter is that her I know that they said this in the past, but I just kind of assumed that it was not super accurate, but her power is the one leading the charge for her good days and her bad days, not her like not her specific emotional state. I would have thought, and I did think before this that she would like wake up having a bad day or something would happen to cause her to fall more into like her dissociative problems.
I think it's
Uh
supposed to represent like maybe something that like there are disorders and things I'm
mhm.
sure that are very like chemical dependent in the brain in terms of like
Yeah.
once an episode or attack or whatever starts, then like you're kind of stuck in that state, but it's very
Yeah.
dependent on like because I don't know if this is that similar, but like I knew someone with MS where like when they didn't have the symptoms. They seemed like totally just normal, but like they were
Mhm.
completely like bedridden and like kind of had like a hard time talking and stuff when the
Mhm.
MS was like hitting them.
Yeah, and y- this might not be amazingly accurate, but I think that's kind of my idea of like how bipolar works. Like it's less reliant on what's going on in your life and you're more at the whim uh of like whatever your brain decides is happening.
Right.
um and so that's kind of how her power works. So it's the opposite of Mimi's, where Mimi is making a a decision or like things are happening in her life and she is forced to go into this bad state of mind. And then it's like incredibly hard to get out of it because she's a pyromaniac, and so that is fueling her powers. Like she can't pull out of it, and then she also doesn't have like the same empathy or like seemingly risk analysis that she does when she's just
Well, yeah,
sober minded.
Burn Scar's mania is like spirally. It like goes out of
Hmm.
control, whereas Labyrinth doesn't really have to worry about having the same type of like extreme negative consequences Burn Scar. Um, like there's obviously super bad outcomes if her power was totally uncontrolled or something, but it doesn't
Hmm.
seem like she really gets to that point anymore. So,
Yeah, and even
yeah.
if she did, like if her power was doing something bad, it doesn't push her further into it
Yeah.
in the way that Burn Scars does. Um, Burn Scar, I don't know what else to say about her character.
We've said so much already. I mean,
We've said so much already. I think that she's our first out lesbian character. I know
hmm.
that they don't say that
Well,
she
I
has a
I didn't
romantic.
say it when I was doing the chapter, and like when you were bringing up some of the stuff, I almost said it, but I was gonna say like it seems like she is gay. I don't know.
Yeah, she comes off as gay, not to
Oh, but
stereotype,
also
but
like in Arc 9, we already had Flechette as definitely gay.
oh yeah, 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 that's true. That's true. I couldn't remember if we had seen the explicitly.
Hmm.
So second one, what a loser. But they talk about her. um it's just like the way that she presents herself also makes me think she's gay. I think Taylor says that she has like a badly done self haircut. So she's got like shorter kind of, I gave her like a mullet situation, I think. And then
Look, I
she's
know what
like
it's
got
like to be a lesbian with a bad haircut.
look, and she's got like a sexy red dress on with no shoes. Like I don't know. She comes off really gay. And then like obviously it's the fact that Elle says like Mimi is describing the relationship between them at the hospital as like, oh, we had so much good times together as friends, and Labyrinth is saying the staff at the hospital used me to make sure you are on good behavior. Like
Yeah,
she
it
was
was
being more utilized as a tool there.
the italicized there is they used me as an enticement to get you to cooperate.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just kind of tragic story between them. I don't know. It makes me sad. Um, justice for justice for Burnscar, but also justice for Labyrinth. I want Labyrinth to later be like, well, I thought and said some things that weren't great, and I'm sorry.
I think that Burnscar is so far the most sympath. I think that overall, I mean, like spoilies or whatever, but I think that Burnscar is by far the most sympathetic member of the Slaughterhouse Nine,
Oh
possibly the
yeah,
only one.
it's like if you took any of the rest of them out of the Slaughterhouse Nine, they would like still continue being villains and doing bad things, maybe not on the same scale. But if you took Burnscar out of the Slaughterhouse Nine, she would probably go back and get more mental health treatment. She definitely does not want to be in this situation.
I got a whop and an arg. I think that was a
There's
mistake.
some good
Um,
thing he's admin.
they're okay. So this is, I mean, admittedly, there's like a whole Riley redemption arc later. Um,
Yeah, but I
but
mean, there's more going on there than just taking her out of the situation, you know?
right, and like it's like a whole thing. Um, yeah, I know you're gonna say what about Riley, but I do definitely think that her story is like overall tragic and stuff, but you need to take her so far from the like others and like change the circumstances so much. Cuz I mean
Hmm.
like if we're just looking at them as like individually tragic characters like um Mannequin is also got like a very sad backstory, but he's in so deep that I don't think there's any pulling him out ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
agree. Yeah, and Riley needs to a couple years of maturing, I think. And that's in the end, like that's what is able to get her out of the situation because she is very young now. I think she's probably
I think
around
she's
12 or
12 or
13
13.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah, so in a couple years when she is able to redeem herself, she just has the stability of being like having a functioning brain for the most part, you
she's
know.
also like one of the reasons other members of the Slaughterhouse Nine can't leave is
Hmm.
that like the retribution of having Bonesaw come after you is so much like worse than almost anything most parahumans can do.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Um okay, that's all I have about them. As far as Fault Line's crew, I think this was our we saw
We saw them kick so much ass before, and they get so fucking worked here.
yeah, they first of all, their asses get kicked really bad, but I think this is the first time we hear more about Shamrock. I think she was at the last interaction,
Yeah, like
but
Taylor didn't know who she
Taylor like
was.
didn't know what she was doing really the whole time.
Yeah.
Um, so we got a new member on the team, Shamrock, the the beautiful ginger lady that was a case 53 but with no effects.
She wears like an
Um,
encasement fetish outfit. Like,
does she? I don't think I've ever looked at her costume.
she does. It's like leather all the way up and like a leather mask that covers her like neck and face and then lets her hair out the top.
That's funny. Shamrock. And I really love her power. I think it's so fun. It's like a
Yeah, her
power
power
that
is
kind of
awesome.
I think it's a power that, like, comes off as weak, but then, like, when you just think about the effects of it, you're like, "Oh, no." Like, it's so convenient to be lucky, you know?
She's
Like, she
also like
gets
doing it. She gets a lot of like non-lethal boons because like
Mhm.
she shoots a guy in the face when she doesn't have a clear shot of them, and like specifically she makes him shield himself so she can get a non-lethal ricochet that's gonna just like injure his jaw instead of
Yeah.
just like take his whole head off.
Yeah. It's definitely I feel like I think we don't get any information about like how she escaped from whatever case 53 nonsense was going on, but I have a inkling that it's related to her power.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vale says luck powers are my favorite in all books. Matt Cawthon, Nick from Superpowered. I love the idea when it's well written, so it's fun. It's so fun. Yeah, I remember there was a lucky lady in in Deadpool, and I think it's also funny because it's
Domino,
like,
I think.
yeah, luck isn't seemingly like she doesn't actually have a lucky power. She just is lucky.
Yeah, I don't I
Um,
never understood if like I know that
if it
Domino
was
is
an
a
actual
mutant, but
superpower.
like the way that I've seen her portrayed is was very ambiguous. Yeah,
Mhm. Domino, yeah, I love those scenes.
I
Yeah,
don't think
it
I've
makes
seen
you wonder
Deadpool 2 though, the movie.
if this had been a natural trigger, if she would have even like how long would it have taken for her to realize that she had this power?
Also, like I think probably a lot of the reason it took her so long to like master the power and they had to like run her through so many drills is the
Mhm.
whole idea of it like the power being mismatched to the person from
Mhm.
Cauldron Vials. So,
Yeah, and the fact that it's not an actual luck power. It's like the minor precog and telekinesis power or whatever that they mention. Because there's more like intention that she needs to like push, I think, rather than like things will just fall in place for her.
yeah. And like I kind of think of it as like she plays slow-mo Peggle and she has the aim assist on and
Hmm.
so she knows like the first three bounces. Anyway.
Uh,
Um so call in.
man, what did we learn about Colin? Um, he doesn't feel bad about what he's done. Like that's something
I
notable.
do it all again. I think
He's
in
like,
like all of his
no,
chapters he's pretty much like, "Yep, I do it all again." And they're like,
yeah, every
"Okay, you
single
get 10
chapter
more arcs." And then
he's
"Yep,
like,
I do it all
yep, I
again."
do it all again. It's like, we'll see Dragon like check in on him later and be like, Colin, do you see what you did wrong? And every single time he's like, nope, it was the right call.
I did what had to be done, sir.
Yeah, but he he views himself as a soldier, which it was like that specific call out. He's like, I'm a fucking soldier. Back off, dude. Um, gives me like exactly like that toxic Sigma vibe that you mentioned.
I hadn't thought of it like in those terms until I was saying it, and then I was like, "Holy shit, he's totally a Sigma."
He is like if he never got powers, he would be making like YouTube videos on how to min max like dating.
He would also like
um
all of the pictures on all of his like backgrounds would be John Wick like next to a wolf howling at the moon.
Bill said I loved the Peggle joke and I'm so sad. All you got was ugh from Vic. I'm sorry. Um,
Yeah, some of my jokes have a very niche audience, and some of my jokes are designed to get that reaction from Vic. So
yeah. And most of them are do both. So,
exactly.
um, he also, I mean, we get to see the way it's like the same way he flirted with Dragon in her chapter, this chapter. And being in his mind, he does not seem to know that he's flirting. The only thing we see is the like "I need you" comment, but he like is totally like oblivious to why that was something that could have like caused a reaction.
Right, yeah.
And then it like starts his spiraling, like, oh my God, like I always make these mistakes. I'm so stupid. Da, 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 da. Like he's so in his head that he doesn't even know when he's doing these things. And it's obviously intentional because why else would he have brought it up, right?
Well, I think it's okay. I think it's that like awkward, like I can't help but say this compliment. I want to be flirting with you, but I'm
Hmm.
trying not to. And
Hmm.
then he realizes he's doing it, and then is like, oof, on himself.
He's like, this is why my parents didn't love me.
This is why I have that backstory where I had all the free time to myself.
This is why I have that backstory where
I
I
didn't date anybody.
purposely never fell in love or dated anyone. It's like so it works obviously in this scene because he's berating Mannequin and it's effective, but if it was like anyone else, they would have been like, "Oh, dude." And that's kind of her reaction. Like I know the "Oh, Colin" disappointment sigh is in uh is in response to the fact that she realized that he's being recruited for the Slaughterhouse Nine, but it just works in so many regards.
It was funny
um
because I think that either you misworded or I misheard, but I didn't stop for it during the chapter explanation because it sounded like you had said at one point that Dragon was like, or that either Dragon thought he was considering going or that he was considering going. Just some, it was one of those like momentary things where it was clear from context you didn't mean that, but the way it came
oh,
out sounded like really funny.
no,
Um,
no, no.
that's why I didn't even bring it out at the moment because I was just didn't want to break
No.
your flow.
And when I read the line the first time, I took it as it's right after he starts like talking to Mannequin the first time, and what he's saying is, "Go ahead and kill me. I have nothing to live for." And so I thought depressed "Oh, Colin" was in response to that because like you wouldn't want to hear anyone say that, let alone like one of your basically her best friend, right?
Right? Yeah.
It's very, very sad. But apparently she didn't care about that. She was more concerned about like the fact that he was about to get uh torture, murdered slash recruited.
A recruitment letter, yes.
Yeah.
Standard application from the Slaughterhouse
Hmm.
Nine, the torture murder. Um,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't notice Greg's comment. Contrast with Spitfire, who has a flashy power but struggles with being excessively lethal. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. Well, we get down. I think we're done with Colin for a moment, unless you have more.
No, that's it.
We're at Mana
We learned
Paquin.
a we learned a lot about Mannequin here. I didn't get into his backstory in the overview, so you can talk about it now.
Yes. So, and it didn't like somehow the dots didn't connect with me the first time about the Seamerg stuff until like way later when we really see the Seamerg, where I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, he's not like crazy because his family died. He's like crazy because the Seamerg can like twist you in really specific ways. Um,
Yeah, like it wasn't just that his family died, it was the Simurgh went there to specifically probably kill his family
and
and make
probably
him
in
crazy.
like a crazy way,
Yeah,
like
in a
some
crazy
hyper
way
specific imagery that will like
that
haunt him.
affected him more. Yeah.
And then like he can probably hear the like siren of her power, like, and just every once in a while I was like, how long has that been there for? Did it
Hmm.
ever stop? So yes. Mannequin is uh seen in weird sideways flash at one point in like another
Hmm.
timeline, and he's a very successful hero who like helps out the other
Oh.
heroes and stuff. and he's helping them plan for like a emergency situation.
Yeah.
And I think also like Dragon's creator is in that same scene, not dead. Um,
Mhm.
so um,
Yeah. So, man, I'm trying to find the section specifically. Remind me what his name is.
his name is it Alan? That's
Alan. That's right. Alan Graham. So he originally, I mean, he still is a tinker, but he was already a tinker, um, before his family died, and he was specializing in the, like, biomes and terraforming and shit. And he had this like big ass project to make to like launch them on add them to the moon, and we would be able to like farm from the moon or whatever, and it would be awesome.
which
uh
is actually part of how we learn about stuff. Later we learn like this is kind of like weird spoilies and like out of topic, but kind of a fun just bring it all back kind of thing. They learn
mhm,
later that the powers don't work when you get a certain distance from Earth. So like he
mhm.
couldn't go to the moon to create the moon base. He had to create it on Earth where his tinker
And then
power would
ship it
work
there.
and then ship it there, yeah.
That's funny. It's like in space nobody can hear you scream, but what they mean is in space nobody can tinker.
Exactly.
Um, so yeah, he was like a good guy. I don't think he was like a hero cape, but like obviously doing heroic
He
work.
was like the ultimate
Uh
rogue, I think, because he was
yeah.
like doing large scale, like try to save the world. Like he
Mhm.
probably would have been like nominally a hero with the guild or something because of how the
Mhm.
guild's like international structure is set up and the fact that a lot of what they do is not fighting.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, but it didn't work out because Idiot had a wife and kid, and
what an
so
idiot!
when they got murdered by the Seamerg, he went fucking crazy. And I was curious, as I was reading this, I was wondering if you think, because I don't think we've seen any double trigger tinkers, but I wonder if he could have been a double trigger tinker because his power his power is still the same. Like he has like self-sustaining like biospheres or whatever. He's just doing it with his body and other people's bodies rather than with like plant matter and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
But
I was gonna
it would
say
make sense if he triggered again.
I think that I could imagine the Seamerg intentionally causing a second trigger. Like
Mhm.
like let's imagine a scenario in the future where we see a little child, Alan Graham, and
Okay.
he's putting himself behind a little barrier of just anything he can reach, and he's like, I gotta seal myself in. And you see
Mhm.
that like he has this weird mindset to begin with. Then
Mhm.
like his trigger event happens, and then if the Seamer puts him in a similar situation, but either like
Mhm.
you are trapped in the little cave or whatever with your dead family, or maybe they are what constitutes the thing you're stuck in. You know,
Yeah.
one of those type scenarios where like it causes the second trigger.
Yeah. And I think the like interesting thing is that it could kind of even work further is that you talked about like Tinkers specifically their power's intention is to solve an unsolvable problem,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the case with all of like as far as I understand, everyone's sort of supposed to double trigger. Like the intention is to mature the power, so the power is given to all the capes get their powers, and that's the power that the entity already had, but then when they double trigger more developed and it's more matured, and he kind of does solve the unsolvable problem. Like he is able to pretty much 100% seal himself away. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. I think that makes sense. And I just realized with you saying that and looking at the half face of Armsmaster that Armsmaster kind of is the whole game. Like the
Hmm.
idea of like trying to solve entropy. Like Arms
Yeah.
Master kind of is that. So that's
Yeah.
kind of interesting. Um,
Tinkers are just really cool.
they really are. And like I had never thought of that idea that he's a double trigger before now, but like him getting a second trigger when his family died is like
hmm
seems like such a like it makes so much sense.
Yeah, like it could just be that he went crazy, but I do think it's like it kind of with his like vibe before, I think that it makes more sense that he had a second trigger event, and that's why everything's all everything's all crazy now.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Um,
well,
moving on
Mannequin's pretty
to
cool.
Dragon.
We talked a lot about how he obviously does a lot of things for show. Um,
Oh
but
yeah, and I love his
that's not,
whirling like a top move. That's so anime.
yeah. And like cracking his joints into place. Oh my God, I almost drew it because it's so funny, but I think later on he like has this because he kind of like swaps his parts out or whatever for different designs, but he has this different mannequin head that like laughs at you.
Yeah, yeah. That's
And
got
I
a
was like,
clacking
man, I should
jaw.
draw the creepy mouth on. I didn't draw his mask as described because I couldn't make the like indents for the mouth, and I look as intimidating as it does when it's just clear like this, so I just left it. But
Yeah, I
I did
imagine
think
that they're
about
really
adding his.
subtle indents, so it'd be
Yeah,
like,
it's just a shadowy area.
yeah. But
Yeah.
you'll get some good opportunities later. He's described as being like 9 feet tall when he's at his full thing, and I remember
hmm
I've seen a lot of good. Like I've seen some kind of shady, like, and by shady I don't mean like sketch in that way. I just like kind of bad art of mannequin.
hmm
But I've also seen some really really good ones of like him being this really gangly thing. That's like if he was 9 feet tall, he'd only still be about 2 feet wide, kind of thing,
hmm
and like
Yeah.
really weird alternate body types and options, and I think that's like cool because I think he is trying to make a really inhuman body.
Yeah, he's very spooky. Um, Dragon. We learned that Dragon needs Colin.
I need him.
And that she's gotten to a point. I wonder if this was the like breaking point because last we saw Dragon, she was like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna be able to bring it up to him and make it happen. But like, I think like almost seeing him die, she's like, I just need to figure that I need to like just tell him and like get the ball rolling because
I
I don't know.
I feel like it's a combination of that and her being like, "Ooh, opportunity strikes."
Yeah, for sure. It just it did line up perfectly. She's like, "Well, let me tell you about these parts that I put on you."
Well, it's kind of like we said, like they both, if you look at it a certain way, kind of have like sketch motivations for this relationship.
I know they do. The part where I didn't even mention it, but she's like, "Well, I do have these parts for a reason." And he's like, "Oh, she's a cripple?"
Yeah.
But he only thinks of it like factually, not like how will this change the dynamic of our relationship, which I guess like good for you. You're not ableist even though you called her a cripple. Um
I think he's so removed from the idea of the normal human experience that like
yeah,
he doesn't necessarily think of that as being, cuz she is so powerful and present in the physical
and
world.
omniscient.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not
Um
like concerned about her body in any way.
yeah. And Greg did call out my phrasing of you've seen a lot of shady mannequin art. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of sketchy mannequin art. I
A lot of
don't know.
really sus mannequin art.
Lots of sussy mannequin art. Um I feel like we don't learn a ton about Dragon this chapter. She's if anyone ever thinks, that Dragon comes off as cold, I think the fact that she screams multiple times, just like
She
in
like can't hold
distress.
back. She has like
Yeah.
totally regular human reactions to
Yeah,
stuff.
she has
She
like
cannot.
she's just reacting to the situation because the screaming made the situation worse. It's not like she screamed to be like, I want to come across more human. Like she just screamed out of like just sheer like panic and terror, and she didn't want to do that. It was bad for the situation. Um
A good old fashioned involuntary reaction.
yeah, exactly. Just like any normal person.
Yeah.
I would never call her cold. There's so many more. She's one of the warmest characters. I feel like Miss Militia is like the top, and then like she's a close second.
Yeah. Because, like, most of the characters are pretty cold, and a lot of them who are sort of warm on the surface are, like, kind of, like,
Detached,
either
like Miss
detached.
Militia.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, Tattletale is pretty warm on the surface, but the couple times we see from her perspective, she is just, like, miserable on the inside all the
Hmm.
time.
Yeah, Tattletale just acts like she just often acts like a teenage girl, um, which is like not aligned with I think it's just like who she was before and like how she knows how to act when she's like interacting with other teenagers and stuff. Um, but it is not aligned with her as a person.
Yeah. 2 plus 4 times 5 is back. The boss left
What?
early, so I can listen to this until the end, except when customers show up.
Well, why
Haha!
doesn't your boss let you listen to streams when you're working? It's kind of shitty. Maybe you should quit. Sorry, I shouldn't. I shouldn't do that.
Vic is constantly like, "Can I rewrite your resume?
Yeah,
Can I help
I
you
love
apply?"
rewriting resumes. I would be happy to help you with your resume. 2 plus 4 times 5.
Yeah. This is a real offer.
This is a legitimate real offer. It would be putting yourself on mega docs to me. But don't worry, I won't tell anyone.
Mhm. So I think we can move on to the powers, knowledge, and world building. We've
Mhm.
talked a lot of good characters. So we can talk about more than the things I just pulled out, but the first thing I was like, Burnscar's power is really good in a parahumans fights sense. Like it's ridiculously good. It's a teleportation power. It's an attack power. It like the fact that you can both throw out the flames and make them spread at the same time,
Mhm.
seemingly multi-focus to a big degree, like someone like Taylor would have. But you know,
Yeah. Can she put out her own fires if
yes,
she was so inclined? Okay, that's
she
cool
can.
too.
She can subside fires because we see her do it later. Um,
Oh, yes.
and so like it is
So
a
much better than
really
Spitfire.
yeah, like Spitfire's power. Like if you were to just rank these people, like I would give like an A rating to Burnscar's power and like a C or a D rating to Spitfire. Spitfire is
Mhm.
not immune to fire and thus has to wear fireproof gear. Um, like I don't know, when you have a power and you're just directly not immune to your own power, that's a bad sign. That's a bad starting
Mhm.
point. And like, how much utility does she have? Like, can shoot a line? Come the fuck on.
Yeah, for sure.
Um. Anyway, Vale says, "Wait, I thought you two worked together. I'd have a panic attack if someone I worked with offered to write my resume." Well, I will tell you that Vic wrote my resume for the current job that I currently have. So
I sure did. And I have worked on other coworkers' resumes trying to apply to other jobs. Fail, I'll work on your resume too if you like. Listen, I'm not that good at it, but I'm a lot better at it than other people, I've noticed, because they send me their resume and it gives me a panic attack. I just need to get my grubby little fingers in it and clean it up.
Um, Greg says, not being immune to your own power is such a cauldron move. I'd agree with you, but I think Spitfire's a natural trigger.
I think she
She's
is.
just
She's just a
unfortunate.
normie.
People.
Spitfire is like the one in the group who just like doesn't fit in. Like I feel like maybe she and like Faultline knew each other before, and then so when the group formed, it was like I guess
Well, no, no,
I
no,
guess
no.
you can join.
It's like because the Undersiders tried to recruit Spitfire.
Oh,
Spitfire
I
was
remember.
like a total normie solo cape in Brockton Bay. They approached
Hmm.
her, and then Faultline approached her better.
Yeah. So
So
maybe she just not to say that they don't care about Spitfire, but Faultline may have only approached her to stick it to Tattletale.
I think that Tattletale lucked out, not getting a dangerous cape like Spitfire, who just like lights an area on fire and then goes, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
She doesn't seem to
Um,
carry any extinguishing equipment.
2 plus 4 times 5 says Spitfire is basically a napalm thrower, except kind of worse. Is that how you say that?
Napalm.
Napalm.
Hmm.
By the way, I like my dinosaur watermark on my resume. It isn't changing. Oh, that's good.
Yeah. I guess I always thought of them at like Faultline's crew as like a mostly Cauldron team, but at the moment
Hmm.
they're like uh 3-3 split. So it's yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean it will have more Cauldron members later. But then I guess Scrub joins them and he was a natural. I guess it balances out. There's got to be like way more
Well, Scrub's not a natural cape. He's a forced. He's not a cauldron cape. He's not a cauldron cape, and he's not a natural cape.
yeah, it was
But
like a kind of a
oh wait,
forced
yeah,
situation.
I guess he does have a natural trigger. It is like a weird forced situation though.
Yeah.
Um, that did involve weird case 53 stuff. He was gonna get those powers naturally or unnaturally.
Look, you're gonna get powers.
You're gonna get powers. You get to choose. You want the real deal, or do you like a artificial situation?
Well, as we learn later, he lucked out because apparently people who have the potential to trigger get shit powers from Cauldron Vials.
Mm, yeah. Dude, I'd be so pissed, personally.
If you're like, oh no, I got
I'd be
bad
like,
powers.
I'd be like, I've been trying so hard to get powers this whole time, so I'm just gonna pay for them. Like, it's not happening. You get the powers, and then they suck. And they're like, yeah, that happens sometimes when you have when you already have the thing. And then I'm like, oh my God.
Buyer beware. Um,
Yeah.
Oh, but the last Spitfire thing I wanted to say was something something. Her power is like the superpower's equivalent of an angry outburst, but she's the type of person who's trying to work on that side of herself. So her power is like a double-edged sword, and the angry emotional outbursts might get momentary results in a situation, but they alienate or hurt people long term, as though they were receiving some kind of mental burn from fire she's spitting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm.
Mental burn. 2 plus 4 times 5 says Gregor's power synergizes pretty well with Spitfire, but only in the sense that Gregor makes up for the drawbacks of her power. I wonder
Mm-hmm.
if they could utilize their duo more, like if there's something that Gregor could use that could be like triggered by fire kind of situation, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Like either he creates like a better napalm ground, or like
Mm-hmm.
he has like a little bomb that gets set off that she shoots after the fact or something.
Yeah, and the bomb could do something cool, like a smoke bomb or something. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of potential with Gregor's power.
And we do see them in the most basic way, like 4 times 5 is describing in Arc 5 at the very beginning. We even have an art of it where she's
Mhm,
burning down a building and he is just tending to the sides of the flames. So,
mhm,
yeah. And then I said I thought it was interesting that Labyrinth can sense the material of her creation. I don't know if we learned this before, but I didn't think we did. And it's possibly even to the degree that like Skitter can tell where the bugs are. But
Mhm.
we only see from her perspective when the power is very weak, like this, and she still seems to be able to sense Shamrock's power to the degree that she knows that it's really subtle, like telekinetic nudges. Whereas, like,
Mhm.
I don't know that other characters can tell that at all, you know?
Yeah, I think it's just her. That's the only time we see it.
Yeah, so she, like, a neat little detail that is hardly even brought up. It's like a throwaway one line that, like, oh, she can feel everybody running around on her constructions and things.
Yeah, I think, and if she had, well, like 2 plus 4 times 5 says Shaker 12 OP, please nerf. Like, if
Yeah.
she had like full communication power, like she would be OP. But she doesn't, you know.
Hmm.
Um,
So, I
Something
feel like
else about the
there's more
world
power
building.
stuff to talk about for sure. Like,
Mhm.
what were you gonna bring up?
Oh, I was going to talk about the asylum because
Mm,
we've heard about it before, but this is the first time people have been like, I remember the asylum. Um, because that's something. First of all, it always shook me that they call it like the parahuman asylum. Like asylum is such like a old and
loaded
outdated
term.
term. Yeah, weird and like from this chapter, you and I were talking about this, like it seems like they're going a different way with the asylum than they end up going. It's like it's like an actual asylum. It's like inherently abusive. She talks about like she's when she's forming the asylum, it's like shit covered and
Yeah,
like
like needles and
full of
shit and
needles.
like padded walls and like broken glass everywhere. And like
Yeah.
I think that this might be her real mental image of the place, but when we see it
Mhm.
later, it's very like sterile, very like uh, I don't think it's necessarily a good form of care because it's basically like solitary confinement. So it is
Mhm.
still very like bad and dystopian, but it is
Yeah.
not like
It
a
is it
high
is n-
unhygienic disaster. It's like just a regular hospital like
yeah, it's like a
prison.
regular mental hospital and they have like we'll see like they have special therapists for people affected by people affected by parahuman powers either personally or from somebody else's powers. Like they are providing proper care, like,
And
you
like
know, technically
specialized
proper.
rooms as well because we see that like a lot of the patients need specific like because Sveta's there who like I mean I guess the if there are new readers you don't know Sveta already but if you've read the book you of course do know Sveta. um
Mhm.
she's like a big tentacle monster and she needs to be able to hold on to like special like braces on the wall so she can like
Yeah, they, like, go out of their way to give accommodations. They have, like, internet access and things like that, like, they are not I don't know,
yeah, and I think like
it's
Elle
pretty
couldn't have the
good.
amenities. Like
Yeah.
Elle was stuck in a room that she was constantly turning into a nightmare. So when
Mhm.
she sees like it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy because they'll move her into
Mhm.
a new room and no matter how good the conditions are in
Then she
like
shits
an
on the bed
hour
and puts needles everywhere.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry,
So
it's rude.
it's
She was just really mean this chapter.
yeah.
Uh,
Greg had said in the chat a while back, wonder if she could feel Taylor controlling bugs crawling all over her stuff.
oh my gosh,
Definitely
gross.
yes.
She's like, ew, that doesn't feel right. Um, yeah, so I don't know. It's like I know that they had a really I'm not saying that the asylum is great because first of all, they call it an asylum. Like it's not even colloquial, like it's literally called that, isn't it?
Yeah,
The
the
Parahumans
parahuman
Asylum.
asylum.
Yeah. Um, but
And it's
it
supposed to be for
sounds
like non criminal parahumans who still can't live out in the real world, but it sounds
yeah.
real bad anyway because it's still like a jail for the people there.
Yeah, but like it does seem to be when we see it later on, like the very similar to like our current like mental health institutions and hospitals and things, and a little bit on the like better
Yeah, I
side
was gonna say,
because
like,
of the
it's better than most of the, like, nursing home style facilities that I've interacted
hmm
with. I
yeah,
like the ones that we were dealing with were pretty good, but they were still like not that
yeah,
good.
not
Um,
great. And like obviously these aren't amazing because they had such a poor experience there. Obviously, like the thing is like they should be providing enough accommodations to make them not miserable.
yeah, like
um
I mean, they need like they need to not keep them all cooped up in like single rooms. They need to find a bigger space to have like
mhm.
a way for them to communally interact. And there are some like Sveta where they have to like wait until they have a patient who's tough enough to like visit with her as a normal interaction because she
Yeah,
just accidentally kills things. So,
yeah.
there's reasons for some of the things.
The other thing about Elle is that they could have had her interacting with patients more if they had, if she proofed everybody to her power. I know that is still seeing it or whatever, but she probably could have recuperated a lot easier if she was like actually able to interact with people, except aside from the people that apparently uh she was being used to like placate.
Yeah. 2 plus 4 times 5 said, I think Wildbow once implied that the asylum in the past, as of when Labyrinth and Burnscar escaped, was not as good of a place as it is when we see it later in the story.
Yeah, that could be it too, but it can't have been that many years different. Like, I
I think
can't
she's only
see
been
this
with their
happening more than
group
2
for
years
like,
ago.
yeah, I don't even think she's been with Faultline for a whole year necessarily. Like, I'd have to look at like a timeline if there even is one for those events, but it just didn't feel like Faultline's crew has even been together that long.
Mhm.
So, yeah. I know she's like it's like a family, but I think it's like the Taylor thing where like the entire story up to now has not been a full 2 months. And
Mhm.
Taylor's like, they are like my family about the Under Crusaders.
She's like, "These are the best people I've ever met, and I'm going to change my entire ethical system to match them." And Labyrinth, same, because she obviously has different ideals than what she is carrying out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe she just loves money. That's the thing, but like it didn't come up this chapter.
There are no situations that involve money, but usually I'm just thinking about how much I love money. That's why I can't focus on
She's
the current situation.
she's like, well, if only you were paying us to protect you, then we could help you leave the Slaughterhouse Nine. But too bad you didn't even think about it.
That was obvious, idiot. I thought it was for world building in the Colin chapter, like the idea that there would be parahuman serial killers is like really obvious in a way, but this chapter just like puts it out there that he is, and that part of the reason that everything's so bad is that like there are people like this who will literally just like kill you if you're helping too much.
Mm,
So,
yeah, it doesn't make it easy to be a good parahuman.
yeah. Mannequin's a real asshole.
hmm
Um do we want to go to the audience participation?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so the question for this week was focused most around 11.c, but can really apply to a lot of things. What's the worst mental downside we see to a power from your perspective? Oh, jumping back to the chat for a second. 2 plus 4 times 5 said, maybe the asylum was like, wow, Fault Line's crew just broke in and caused a lockdown, and we lost at least 2 patients. Maybe we should improve their quality of life so that they're not so eager to leave?
Yeah, and then one of the patients that they lost quickly joined the Slaughterhouse Nine, and they probably got a lot of bad clout from that because they're like, "Wow, your patients would rather be in the Slaughterhouse Nine than they would be at the asylum."
That's pretty bad. It seems
It's
like you've
pretty bad.
counseled her in the incorrect direction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so reading the answers that we already got, we have Waldo 2 + 4 × 5 in the Discord says maybe Dinah, in part because having a precog power would ruin so many things about life, i.e., I want to do X, but I know for a fact that X would upset Coil, and that means I wouldn't get as much candy tonight. But also because she has to answer any questions about probabilities, even if she doesn't want to. Yeah, and the headaches. And like literally skimming forward to see what the next couple chapters were is why I came up with this, reading the like a little bit of the Dinah chapter. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely in mind when I was thinking about this. And then do you have anything to say before I move on to Vale?
No, go for it.
Okay, so Vale said, for me, it's the obsessive nature of tinkers. I don't have a mindset to deal with that sort of mental manipulation. Huh.
That's funny because I'd be like so into it.
I think that I would be an okay tinker because, like, tinker is specifically like taking things that are sciency and making them more of an art, and like I'm not so good at real technical things, but things that are kind of like I don't. It's like the whole thing at like I can't make a car go, but when I'm driving a car, boy, am I good at it. And like I can't
Mm-hmm.
make it. I couldn't program a video game, but ooh, I'm really good at video.
Yeah.
So I think with the tinkering, it would give me the kind of like thing where I had the like the obsessive part about it would also help me get over my shitty unfocused nature. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it would really help me out if I could have some tinker powers. Uh,
Yeah. I would love to be a tinker. I think that'd be like one of my faves, but it just wouldn't fit with my I wouldn't give myself a tinker power. That'd be selfish. Vale said you specifically said drawbacks. I obsess over things naturally. I imagine if that hyper focused drawback, it'd be unmanageable. Yeah, that makes sense.
hmm All right, and then Greg had said, Accord. He sees how to fix everything in nice, concrete, actionable steps. Societal collapse, world hunger, the Endbringers, all within reach, except he's cursed, too unstable and neurotic for anyone to take seriously. The frustration and anger that nobody will listen all feed back into his issues, a vicious cycle, ensuring he will never accomplish his goals. Yeah, it's pretty
For
bad.
sure. Yeah. I love a
I
chord.
I think that the downsides from like Dinah and Tattletale's powers, like just the crippling headaches and stuff, sound pretty bad. And yes, you do love
Yeah.
Accord. He's one of your problematic faves.
He's one of problematic. I would say I know he's not in this book, but if I had Crystal Clear's power, that's like the worst I can imagine having to suffer through. Like
Man, I already have
his
Crystal Clear's power.
yeah, it's just that also I already get migraines, so it would be nothing new. It's just like I think any power that like causes that like huge disconnect from like not only like the world around you, but like who you were, and like it's kind of just impossible to overcome. Like I would hate that. That's what
Well,
like
the
I
weirdest
feel
part about
similar about.
like Crystal Clear's power is that he's like in and out. Like he can move out of that mindset by not using the power, which like that analog is so strange. Like I'm sure that there's more to
Oh.
be said about that, but like we can see in his chapter that he does have normal vision when he takes the crystals out, and
Hmm.
then so he like actually loses the senses he has from it and gains back his normal like facial recognition and stuff. So
Hmm.
it's like something we should analyze more with that like dual nature. Cause like a lot
Hmm.
of thinker powers, like Tattletale's power just is on basically, and she can
Hmm.
like kind of shut off the fire hose or whatever. But his power is so like consciously either on or off.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think it's really interesting to think about.
Yeah. And then personally, it's kind of the same idea, but like definitely a really different power. But like Mimi's power, like oh my god, dude, it's just the same thing. It's like a power that the drawback is like being really disconnected from like the like still cognizant of reality, but not being connected to the actual like cause and effect of your actions, maybe, and spiraling out of control, like in a way that you wouldn't if you could like just get some solid ground.
Mm-hmm.
Um, 2 plus 4 times 5 says Heartbreaker's power is also kind of fucked for him. It's very fucked for everyone else because he can just do whatever he wants. And if someone tries to stop him, then he just makes them be his slave. Yeah, same thing there. It's like Heartbreaker's power, either he was a sociopath before or he's a sociopath so that he is able to use his power without um without feeling too bad about it.
There are a lot of powers that I just like wouldn't want to have because of their like negative utility for
Mhm.
like how you are. Like I joke about like any power would be great, but there are a lot that would be pretty awful. Like having that the spore guy from the like in what is it, the
Pre
prologue, the
prologue, yeah.
yeah, the
The
prologue of
prequels. I almost said the prequels.
yeah, exactly. From the prequels, from the prologue of War, the like spore guy, like that's
Mhm.
obviously bad for obvious reasons. There's tons of Case 53s where you wouldn't want to have the Case 53 body, but then there's a lot of powers like Heartbreaker's power, where like you really wouldn't want to have it. There are a lot of powers though with where like I really like the character Seer, who Taylor was like, it would be hard to have this like desiccation power without like seeming like a villain, but he's managed to brand himself a hero and has been like ingenuitive enough with it to not hurt people to the degree. And it would be cool to
Mhm.
have one of those powers that like is kind of like villainous, but you can do just enough to like get
Yeah,
around that.
it's difficult to pull off, but it doesn't affect your mindset enough to make it like it's not so difficult to pull off that it has to affect your mindset and make you evil.
Yeah, because there's definitely like a lot of the powers, like Alec's power is just kind of like if you use it for the control someone power, like it seems like it makes him worse as a person as he does
Mhm.
it. Like it revitalizes him emotionally in some ways, but it makes him more like the bad, controlling, like thinks he's better than other people. Like it disconnects him from his empathy, just like Burn Scar with her
Mhm.
mania.
Yeah. 2 plus 4 times 5 says, you know what power would suck no matter what?
Breed.
Breed.
Yeah, yeah, I wouldn't want to have Breed's power for sure.
I don't know. It's pretty cool.
It is pretty powerful in a way, but geez, would you really want it? Would you?
No, no. It would
No.
you just have all these I bet he could make it not so evil and crazy. Maybe he can
Pre-prepare
mm,
animal carcasses for them to grow
he
on.
he could he
I
could
don't think he controls them once they're outside of him. So he
no, they just do their thing.
Breed has an endless supply of friends. Taylor pre-alpha. Yeah.
Funny.
Well. All right. Well, my answer is I think I'm gonna go with like the Dinah headaches because much like Vale said that they have migraines. I do not anymore. But when I was growing up, I had very debilitating headaches very frequently, and
Mhm.
I
You
didn't
don't want to
like
go
it.
back to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody likes it.
Yeah.
It's rough.
So I'm glad that that is not what my life is like anymore. Um,
Mhm.
but and then you had already answered, so we're gonna move on to the one for next week. Also sort of based on the same like few moments I was like really thinking about Dinah's power, and so this one is make up a super limited scope, but super useful in the right circumstances, thinker power.
Oh, yes.
It can also just be one that's really good, but has like a really bad drawback.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
so like, it's just fun.
I'll come
Um,
up with something good.
all right, so I think we're basically done. I'm gonna start up the outro music, which is the bigger version of the Scarlet track, and read off the links. Um, yeah. The music used in this episode is Infestation by ScarlettXOX. And you can find Scarlett's Twitch link, Twitch TV slash Scarlett, or Scarlett underscore Rogue. And then Discord server for us can be found in the description and the channel description. The author of the work being discussed can be supported at patreon.com/wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com. And there is also a full fan-made audiobook at audioworm.rain-online.org. 2 plus 4 times 5 says, I've good idea for a thinker breaker power for a while. Cool. I'm sure we'll hear about it next week. But yes, thanks for saying it was a good stream. Thanks for being here, guys, and thank you, Vic, for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Cool. So I am going to mute our audio and let the song play out. I don't know how to mute the audio for you, Vic, so I think you'll just have to exit the call.
Uh...
Bye!